All right, this video is about the positive values of our trig functions. And if you know the positive values, you also will know when is it negative. So what you want to remember for our trig functions is all students take calculus. This means all are positive. This means just sine is positive, just tangent is positive, and just cosine is positive. And it's the quadrants, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So we know that sine will be positive in quadrant 2, this area. So what they're doing is they're making a triangle here. And this is theta, this is opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. And so you can see that our x value here is positive and our y value is positive and the radius is always positive. Everybody's positive. But as we move into the next quadrant over here, right, then we now have our opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. And so you can now see that the x value is negative. This right here is negative. So if the x value is negative, our adjacent is negative. So anybody who involves the adjacent, the cosine, the tangent, and all their reciprocals, but sine is positive still, opposite over hypotenuse. So it looks like this. And this is in radians, but you can figure out that way. So we're in positive here, and you can see the x value and the y value, they are both positive. And so the opposite over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent, adjacent over hypotenuse, all positive. So everybody's positive. As we move into quadrant 2 now, you can see that's our triangle. You guys notice that the adjacent now is negative. So the adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse, this is now negative. So that would mean that cosine is negative and tangent are both negative, but opposite over hypotenuse, that's sine, sine is positive. And so as we move through the triangle, it's that same basic idea. Now both the adjacent and opposite are negative, so tangent would be positive because negative divided by negative is positive. And then finally in the final quadrant, you can now see that the adjacent is back to positive and the opposite is negative. So the adjacent and the opposite is now negative. So the only one who's going to be positive is cosine. And so that's how it's moving in. It's just the x's and the y's that give us our values. So you can see here the x, which is our adjacent, that's basically cosine is positive. So if you move through them, you can see that both x and y are positive. Just the x is negative, and so that means the sign is positive. The sign is the y. That's how you can look at it. Both are negative, so negative over negative. That means tangent is positive. And then the final one, the x is positive, the y is negative, so just cosine. So on each of these, it will always be just one, and it's reciprocal, so all students take calculus. Everybody's positive, just sine and its reciprocal, just tangent, and just cosine. So you can tell very quickly that tangent and sine would be negative here. Okay, so find the interval between 0 and 360 where sine and cosecant are positive. So that would be between 0 and 180 degrees. This is quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. They will all involve quadrant 1 because everybody's positive. So now for cosine and secant, we know from 0 to 90, and then also from 270 to 360. So 0, 90, 180, 270. This is our cosine. This is our sine. And this is our tangent. So the next one will be our tangent. So we all know from 0 to 90, and then tangent will be from 180 to 270. You can see they all make up every single quadrant now. We have from 0 to 180, and then 0 to 90 again. So 0 to 180 is everybody, is sine, and then 270 to 360 is cosine, and 180 to 270 is tangent. That's it.